So I thought I would also just talk a little bit now about, you know, my experience of self-isolation. A few interesting things to tell you. I mean, we're all going through this. We've all got this slightly differently, and you're just getting to know me. So this is my experience at the moment. So the first thing is I'm following the shielding protocol because all of my family have underlying conditions. Some of them they're not necessarily named. A couple of them are very rare, and they're not necessarily named on the uh, official sort of shielding advice. But oh, I sneeze. I gotta, I've got to bag it, bin it, kill it. Look, check it out. I actually have a little bit of hand gel. So that's kind of serendipitous, wasn't it? I didn't really mean to become a poster person for that. But that's just life, isn't it? I mean, it's going to have to be life after this. And that's one thing, actually, I think about self-isolation. So much horrible stuff is going on, and I really wish people didn't have to. So many people haven't died. But if we come out of this bagging it and binning it and killing it more rigorously, if we come out of this staying at home more when we have a cold instead of trying to work through it, if we come out understanding that we have to do this, it's still relevant. It's not a thing of the dark ages that we can just sort of forget about now that we have healthcare and things. That'll be brilliant. And the other thing as well is being forced to take a step back a little bit. Yes, we'll probably have some economic repercussions, and yes, this is going to cause problems. But I hope that the solutions will maybe ground us a wee bit more, because at the moment we are in a situation in the world where I think it's very easy for various bugs to hitch a lift all over the place and to take hold on us, and for us not to give our bodies the chance to rest, and our minds the chance to rest, and to not let the stress build up and to degrade our immune systems. I mean, it's easy for me to say all that. I'm an introvert, so I am finding it that I'm really enjoying time to just rebalance myself without having to dilute that with considerations of the outside world. I'm finding that that's a a blessing. I know some people find it very hard, but it is an important skill to learn. So that's definitely part of it. So what have I been doing with my time? I've been doing a lot of sewing. I'm not good at realizing a pattern. Just imagining all those random fragments turning up into something recognizable at the end. However, I did manage to make a toilet roll, not toilet roll. No, not toilet roll. Edit that out, please. I did manage to make a kitchen roll night dress. And yes, I would have shown that to you, except for the fact that having succeeded at it, I then used it to clean the bathroom, so it is no more. Other things I'm making are fabric masks, which may not, I don't know, they might come in useful either for us or for the system if people are really desperate, or care homes or something like that. But it seemed like a good thing to learn how to do whilst there was a chance they might not be needed. So yes, it's just been, and I've tried making myself an actual proper night dress as well. I've had some interesting times with that, but that's what this time is for. In my case, I'm using it for that. I've also dug the vegetable patch. So yes, I'm trying to keep a structure going like that, but also learn new things and use the time well. And I'm also involved in the church as well. So I'm part of something called Young Life, which is really just making friendships in which the Christian faith is accessible to young people. So it's just working out exactly how to translate that into all online at the moment. What other things? Yes, I have 2 cats. They're rescue cats, and when they first came here, they were so shy that they didn't even, you wouldn't know that I had a cat. And now one of them, White Spot, actually both of them are black, but he's called White Spot. He even likes to have his tummy like stroked really gently now. And the other one, Little Paw, is much shyer but also very friendly. So I've been playing a lot with them because they're shut in as well. I don't want them taking in, going out wandering and then taking in the virus on their fur or something. So, it's just trying to keep them fed and stroked and played with as well, which is certainly not a bad it's not a bad task in self-isolation. So those are really what this has meant for me so far. I've also been doing quite a bit of reading, and I have this book which I would like to show you. I'm just showing you some of the ones I've been doing. It's called What If. I am a complete nerd when it comes to, science and humour colliding. So this is serious scientific answers to absurd hypothetical questions. I often find it quite hard to find somebody who's willing to go down the absurd paths of hypothesis with me. And that is really something that is a big pleasure for me, and it really relaxes me as well. I don't know if I'm strange that way. So this book has felt like a real companion. It's got things in it like if everyone in the world pointed a laser beam at the moon, with the dark side of it turn light. And how long can a nuclear submarine survive in outer space? So they do all the calculations and things. One of the ones that tickled me, wait for it, was if everyone on the planet stayed away from each other for a couple of weeks, wouldn't the common cold be wiped out? Well, I suppose we are going to find out. Except for that it may take more than a couple of weeks. I mean, even with the common cold, you're sort of potentially infectious for about 3 weeks after getting better. Just, your body's now immune, at least for a while immune, but you've still got the virus in you. It makes sense to be very, very careful. And so, I guess that question said things like, oh, the economy would collapse, the food chain would collapse, Well, I'm hoping it won't quite get to that level. I think, people sometimes they're better at solving problems and keeping things going than they give themselves credit for. But yes, it will be interesting to see that. And I don't suppose that person ever asked that question thinking they might actually find out. So this is another book that I'm very fond of. This is a photo book. It's called The Time of Her Life, and it's by Leslie McIntyre. And it's chronicling the life of her daughter, who was born in the mid-80s, and she lived for 14 years, and she had an undiagnosed muscular problem. So her mother knew from the moment she was born that she would be life limited. She didn't know how long. But they just kind of lived as normal, and her mother, who's a professional photographer, put her career on hold and started photographing her baby, Molly. And I just find there's such a sort of grace, and there's almost a sort of a fragility to the pictures. There's an intimacy, there's a fragility, but there's also a very confronting element to them. And as somebody who draws themselves, that's definitely something which has been a muse for me for years. I mean, I had friends who had a condition which I knew when I first made friends with them that it was going to end in their passing away long before me, and they did. And so there's something personal I identify with here as well. So, as you can see, the pictures are in chronological order. Molly grows older as she goes on, and it's almost like a sort of challenge to the reader, the viewer, to read it read it and weep and not be afraid. And there's definitely a rawness in there which I think has gone into the creation of Anna. Here is one who's definitely inspired Anna, Anne of Green Gables. I've recently been rereading this one again. It's a coming of age story about a Canadian girl who she lived in an orphanage, and then she's been shipped out to this middle-aged siblings who didn't want her. They wanted a boy to help on the farm, but they keep her anyway eventually. And she goes on to make these series of catastrophic mistakes or temper tantrums and things like that. She does grow, and she's this beautiful, romantic, fiery, loving character, and there's a sort of realness about it. The other thing that's lovely about it is that for all of that, there isn't a great deal of melodramatic tension in it. That's the kind of thing I find very hard in any kind of fiction or reality, actually, to be honest. I mean, my source of entertainment is not in manufactured tension or conflict or debate or whatever. Question time, I find that really hard to watch. There's enough things in the world about the sources of conflict and conquest without it being each other. So I definitely prefer to watch or read about things like that, where we're all, the enemy is not someone who's set their face against it. The danger is not each other, but something like outer space, for example, in Apollo 13, or nature in 127 hours, or a crevasse in Touching the Void. That, to me, feels a lot more interesting to read, and I find it a lot more gripping. And so again, in Anna, although there's a lot of interpersonal misunderstandings, I think I've worked very hard to try not to let it be about people just snarking at each other. So yeah, that's a little bit about myself and my experience of self-isolation, and the books that I've been enjoying and some of my influences. And yes, stay tuned for more about Anna. And meanwhile, stay safe, stay well, stay clean, and take care. Bye just now.